before we move to your college time, I just want to go back to your school time. Did you develop some sort of interest with physics or science, or at that time you were not much clear like what you want to pursue, or you already had some sort of early inspiration to pursue physics?
I still remember in my school, when I studied in this school in Agra, Humlal Mathurvesh,
Hmm.
Uchchatar Madhyamik Vidyalaya. We
Hmm.
had a very good physics teacher, I remember, Mr.
Oh, okay.
J.P. Gupta, and
Hmm.
whom I had kept contact even after coming to Delhi. He was a very dedicated teacher, and he will teach us, show us very good experiments in
Hmm.
physics. So we got interested in physics,
Hmm.
but it was nothing that I will become a physicist. So that
Okay.
is not there. So we will go to college,
Hmm.
and our BSc in intermediate, all the five subjects will be there: physics,
Hmm.
chemistry, mathematics, English, Hindi. These five
Oh.
subjects. So for 2 years, and
Hmm.
then after that, I had decided that I will do science. So
Hmm.
in BSc, that is after class 12, so
Hmm.
BSc pass, we didn't have pass or honors, just pass.
Hmm.
So we will do physics, chemistry, and mathematics. Actually, I liked mathematics more.
Okay. Okay.
So I wanted to do MSc in mathematics. So my father said that getting a job in physics will be much easier. And I said that I do not want to do chemistry. So I can choose between physics and math. Things were
Physics.
very flexible. Things were very relaxed. No one was under tension. That's
Hmm.
the main thing.
The kind of stress students have today was not there at that
That's
time.
right. So I enjoyed physics. I did well in my examination, and I enjoyed reading physics. My father said that
Hmm.
physics karo. So I said, all right, I will do physics. In Delhi University, they already had a physics honors program, but
Hmm.
we did not have an honors program. So it was
Hmm.
only when I completed my BSc did
Hmm.
I decide that I will pursue physics and went to Delhi
You did
University.
MSc from Delhi University in physics. That
Yes.
was the.
I still remember in 1960 February, Niels Bohr had come for a lecture.
Okay. Okay.
So I was then the student secretary, or joint secretary or something like that. Physics Association student. There used to be as everyone, and he stayed in Maiden's Hotel in Delhi,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I had brought him from the hotel. So just looking at him, we had studied Bohr's model
Yeah.
in our BSc and MSc, and so just looking at him, he gave a 1 hour lecture in a big auditorium, and our vice chancellor was also there. Vicky and was the vice chancellor, Professor D.S. Kothari, Professor R.C. Majumdar. All was packed. We just looked at him. I mean,
Mm.
I don't remember what he said or what he did not say. So we had great people like him
Yeah.
visiting us. I think it was in a later year that Delhi University also had Abdus Salam gave a lecture, things like that. So Delhi University had a great tradition because of Professor D.S. Kothari, who everyone knew, and at the international level.
Yeah. Such talks kind of inspire a lot, and I think this is passing from one generation to another generation. I still remember your talk in 2004 National Science Day and how electrifying it was for me. So I can understand like having Niels Bohr at your institute and
Uh,
meeting him and attending his talk would have been interesting. Yeah. So while you were in your MSc, did you narrow down on something like, okay, this is what is my interest? Because later we can see you written books in optics. I
yes,
mean,
yes.
you are
No,
cover good for
no,
optics.
I've been a very flexible person, so I will tell you how things evolved. So I wanted to do nuclear physics, and I enjoyed doing that. And
Mm.
so, 1959 May, I graduated my MSc, and then for 1 year, I worked in Professor N.K. Saha's lab in experimental nuclear physics. I enjoyed that experiment. There
Mm.
was another classmate of mine who was working with Professor Saha, Gurbakh Singh, and we worked together, and we wrote a very small paper that came out, and it was very nice, and I kept applying. So when I applied, I wanted to do experimental nuclear physics. And then in 1960, I had also got admission in several other universities, but the two top universities that I got in was Cornell University and University of Chicago, where Enrico Fermi was there.
Wow.
So I remember I went to Professor D.S. Kothari. I said that I have got admission. I am unable to decide which one to take. And you say there was an option that you say yes to any one of the university by April 15th, you can change your decision, and that is all right. So I told
Okay.
him that. So then he says that, have you accepted anywhere?
Hmm.
I said, yes, I have already said yes to Cornell. He said, that is a very good university. Once you have accepted, you go there and
Hmm.
don't worry about any other university. But
Hmm.
because I was in experimental nuclear physics, I thought that I will get to work with Fermi's lab. Fermi's
Hmm.
lab was very well known. Fermi was the person who made the first nuclear reactor, and
Yeah.
Enrico Fermi was there, and so I was attracted towards him. So, but
Hmm.
I landed up in Cornell, and then what happened was, in the
Hmm.
first year, you have a general advisor. So
Hmm.
I still remember Professor Philip Morrison. Bethe and Morrison had written a book, and
Ah.
Morrison was one of the advisors, and
Hmm.
I met him, and I was what in 1960 September. I was
Hmm.
about 21 years old, and I met him, and I said that. He said that, what do you want to work on? I said experimental nuclear physics. That
Hmm.
inspired me. He said he said, told me, you see, that is the one to one interaction that I had the privilege of having. And
Hmm.
he said that India is going in a big way in reactor.
Hmm.
Homi Bhabha had
Homi
started
Baba.
the reactor physics in Bombay. At
Hmm.
that time, it was Bombay. And so I have been to India, and they have big plans in reactor development. And
Hmm.
so, why don't you work in neutron physics? And we are
Hmm.
also Cornell also had a building up a reactor at that
Hmm.
time, and you worked. I said, all right.
Hmm.
So I changed my, see, and then, so I said that, all right, they are looking for young students, so you work there. So for first 7, 8 months, 2 semesters, I did my coursework. Then
Hmm.
I went there, and one new professor was joining, Professor Mark Nelkin, who was a
Hmm.
student of Hans Bethe, but he
Oh.
was an expert on neutron transport theory, and
Hmm.
and the director of the lab said that he is joining us in October, September, and you work there. So
Hmm.
he even suggested. You see, I have found in America one
Hmm.
great thing, at least at
Hmm.
that time.
Hmm.
My seniors were very, very helpful. The
Oh.
director of the lab told me that
Hmm.
you work with the new professor who will be joining in July or September. September, the new session starts. But
Hmm.
why don't you spend the summer there in
Hmm.
California, in San
Hmm.
Diego? He was at that time working in General Atomics. Mark Nelkin was working at General Atomics. You go there and work, and we will pay you just the bus fare.
Hmm.
Greyhound bus fare. That
Hmm.
was $150 round trip. I remember we will pay. So they went out of their way
Hmm.
to
Support.
support
Hmm.
and encourage people and real well wisher kind of. So I
Hmm.
said, all right. So I had finished my coursework. Before that, I must tell you something.
Hmm.
Professor Hans Bethe gave a course on basic quantum mechanics. So
Okay.
I had this wonderful training from
Hmm.
from Delhi University.
Hmm.
Professor D.S. Kothari was an outstanding teacher in quantum mechanics. So I
Hmm.
was always interested in reading. And then Professor Majumdar also taught applications of quantum mechanics in nuclear
Hmm.
physics. Both
Hmm.
were outstanding teachers. So I was all. So then I took a course on basic quantum mechanics from
Hmm.
Hans Bethe. And
Hmm.
as you know, Hans Bethe received the Nobel Prize later. But he was a meticulous teacher. Meticulous. He will come on the dot. If this course lecture starts at 9 o'clock, he will come 8:55. He will be standing for the
Hmm.
students
Oh.
to come. What discipline and what
Hmm.
meticulous way he will prepare. And it was
Hmm.
a pleasure to hear him and learn quantum mechanics again. The main advantage that happened was in India, as you know, At that time, at least, there was no problem solving. You see,
Yeah,
there was no problem solving. We will have to
sir.
derive the hydrogen atom spectrum or
Unfortunately, today also in specifically students pursuing BSc and MSc physics, lot of universities other than IIT doesn't have problem solving.
problems.
Yeah, sir.
So then we will have questions like write an essay on uncertainty principle and things like that.
Hmm.
Derive the Stark effect in hydrogen and things like
Yeah.
that. Derive the whatever it is. So we didn't have the habit of problem. In Cornell, with each course, I had taken a course on classical mechanics also.
Hmm.
So we had a large number of problems to work out. So that was, and we would sit together with friends, American friends,
Hmm.
and work out problems. That was a great training that I had. So Professor Hans Bethe gave two lectures, two courses, one on basic quantum mechanics and the other on intermediate quantum mechanics. So
Hmm.
that really helped me a lot, and I really enjoyed that course. But my research was on neutron transport theory. And so, but I enjoyed learning again quantum mechanics, and I prepared detailed notes of whatever I was taught.
What was your experience like working with your advisor, Professor Mark Nefkin?
Oh, it was too good. He was so helpful. I cannot tell you, Mehul. I will give you one example
Hmm.
that I finished my PhD by 1963 June. I
Hmm.
had finished my PhD
Hmm.
and I was homesick. At that time, we didn't have much money and I wanted to come back home.
Hmm.
And he said that, Ajoy, cannot go. We have given you a training to think independently. I still remember his word. Now, you have to have a 1 year experience or 1.5, 2 years experience as a postdoctoral fellow. So, believe me, Mehul, I
Hmm.
didn't have to do anything. He said that these were his words. I will write to his very senior scientist, Noel Cornell. I'll write
Hmm.
a letter, and if they don't offer you, then you stay with me as a postdoctoral fellow. I have a project, and you stay with me, and we will work together. And otherwise, you go there. A change of place is always.
Hmm.
So then, what happened was, I didn't have to apply anywhere. No
Okay.
visa problem, no nothing. At that time, getting a green card or a citizenship was no problem. No problem. And
Hmm.
this was in 63.
Hmm.
So he wrote there, he must have written very nice things about me. And I
Hmm.
immediately got an offer of research associateship at Brookhaven National Laboratory
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
at a salary of $700 per month. That was a huge jump, huge jump. I was getting about $200 as a Cornell fellow.
Hmm.
I joined as a research assistant. I still remember my salary was $150 per month, and then
Hmm.
we used to help people in carrying out research work. And because my grades were good, so I became a Cornell fellow, which
Hmm.
gave me $250 a month. And then suddenly I get this $700 per month. So that was a huge salary, a
Hmm.
huge salary.
Hmm.
And that 1 year, or actually 1.5 years in Brookhaven National Laboratory, was a great
Hmm.
experience because I didn't have the pressure of finishing up my PhD, no examination, no nothing. And my work went off extremely well in neutron transport theory, extremely
Okay.
well. Then 1 year was over and my work had not completely finished. So I said that, all right, I will stay for 6 more months or four
Hmm.
more months. My director of the lab,
Hmm.
not the top man, the director of our small lab,
Hmm.
came to my room. This I will never forget. And this I tell all vice chancellors who I meet, that
Okay.
he came to my room and he
Hmm.
said, Ajoy, why are you going back?
Hmm.
Now, today, a young assistant professor wants
Hmm.
to leave, say, University of Baroda or even IIT Delhi. Will the vice chancellor come to the room that why if he is a good man, if he, and I didn't have any research paper with this gentleman. I didn't have
Hmm.
any, but he knew that my work was going on well, that I was a good scientist,
Hmm.
this thing, and it will be good to have me. He said,
Hmm.
why are you going back? You go home. He said that you go home for 1 month and come back.
And come back.
I said, no, no, no. And I didn't have a job. I became a pool officer in Delhi University. But that was a great advantage. I will tell you why it was a great advantage. So I
Hmm.
became a pool officer in the, so these personal touches that I had, that my thesis advisor was not only a great physicist, but a
Hmm.
great human being,
Human being.
always trying to help. We will
Hmm.
have coffee together. Even my teachers, we used to go, he will take me for a cup of coffee to the cafeteria.
Hmm.
Do we do that? I have to ask myself. And I used to do that with my PhD students, but not with my
Hmm.
undergraduate. Professor D.S. Kothari and Professor Archie Majumdar and all people like that. They were
Hmm.
very good people, but there was a distance. There was
Hmm.
a small distance between them. We could
Hmm.
not talk to them on any issue. We could not
Uh,
tell them our problems or difficulties. We will always hesitate. They were very nice people, but we will be always hesitant. There is this hierarchy that is even there today.
Today also, sir. Yeah.
Today also,
Hmm.
right from when I go to the municipal corporation office to even a professor's room in a university, they
Hmm.
can make you wait outside in the hall. And not because I'm a professor, but that normal courtesy.
Hmm.
I take this opportunity to mention that one of the biggest problems in our country is the
Hmm.
arrogance of people in power.
Yeah,
That,
absolutely.
unfortunately, we have
Hmm.
not been able to remove. And those who have power, those who have, and this is true even with medical doctors, with professors, university professors, IIT professors, and that is the only minus point. And this arrogance leads to corruption because you cannot access the person. Today, there
Yeah.
are two problems in our country at
Hmm.
all levels: arrogance and corruption.
Then
If we
corruption.
can get rid of these two, we will be
Hmm.
not number one, now, I mean, beyond number one in the whole. And I feel
Hmm.
that way very, very strong. So,
You're true.
so I work in neutron transport theory. So
Hmm.
when I came back as a pool officer, I want to mention that. When I
Hmm.
came back as a pool officer, Professor L.S. Kothari, who was Professor D.S. Kothari's son, by
Okay.
that time, Professor D.S. Kothari was the chairman University Grants Commission.
Oh.
So Professor L.S. Kothari was professor of physics, and he was working in the same area. And
Hmm.
so we overlapped, and he was also a great man, very helpful, very polite. And he said, Ajoy, there were two students, Professor I.C. Goel, and both became professors in their later life. He said
Hmm.
that you take over their research. So I was so happy to work with Professor Kothari and Professor I.C. Goel and Feroz
Hmm.
Ahmed. So my work continued in neutrons. So because I was working with Professor L.S. Kothari, so I would often go to his home,
Hmm.
and Professor D.S. Kothari will be there.
Hmm.
And Professor D.S. Kothari, I cannot explain that to you in words, the type of person he was. He will just sit and we will just listen.
Hmm.
He was that great personality. You see a person like Swami Vivekananda. I'm not saying Professor D.S. Kothari was Swami Vivekananda, but he was that kind of an image. So you hear him, and he will keep on talking about physics, about general life, and things like that. What is right and wrong. Yeah, two, three things I still remember. That he
Hmm.
will say, if you want to learn a subject, you
Hmm.
must start teaching. He said.
Ah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so if you want to learn a subject, you start teaching. Then he
Start with.
says, then he told me in Hindi one thing, Ajay, har वक्त सत्संग किया करो. That
Hmm.
you mix with good people with good values. Avoid people whom you feel that they are doing wrong things or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you see, these
Hmm.
kinds of profound words of wisdom we got
Hmm.
to hear. He will tell physics also. Our difficulties, we will have this thing. So you will tell him some. He will say that, ha, you do this, you do this. So that experience I can never forget. So we will sit down, and the relationship grew so well that
Hmm.
in his son's wedding,
Hmm.
he invited me as a Bharati.
Oh, okay.
So he took me, Professor D.S. Kotai, not L.S. Kotai, of course. So he took me to Nagpur. We went by
Okay.
train. He reserved a full bogie and there were
Hmm.
about 30 of us. I was one
Uh,
of them, with
okay.
family and with some friends.
Hmm.
I, I just could. I was very young. I was a young, very young assistant professor. Professor L.S. Kothari was also there. He was more of a friend, but
Hmm.
we traveled in a train from Delhi. Today, even the
Okay.
younger generation cannot think of going by train. They will fly down to this thing.
Yeah.
Nagpur was a 1.5 day journey. We went there. We stayed in a place for 2, 3 nights and attended the wedding.